Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time we're talking about episode 3 of season 3 of Game of Thrones called Walk of Punishment. Actually, I gotta admit, this episode's title threw me for a bit when I first read it because I was thinking of an event that actually happens quite considerably later on in the book series compared to what we're actually seeing here at the show. So, I mean, of course, I quickly realized my mistake, but like I said, I was really just thrown there for a minute. If you've read the books, you may have an idea of what it is I'm talking about. If not, don't worry about it. That's probably something that they're saving for further on down the line. And it is something I think we will see in the show, but not for a while. And now that I've completely confused everybody who has not read the books, let's get into the review. Again, as always, I will remind you guys that I have read all the books, but it's been about 2 years since I read any of them, so if I forget some of the details, do forgive me. I'm also going to avoid spoiling any of the big stuff, as evidenced by the confusing and possibly not even really necessary introduction to this video. But I will talk about some of the minor stuff just for reasonable comparison purposes with the books. Now then, let's just get right into it. Let me see here. Alright, so... I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here, trying to remember what some of the things that I wrote down meant. Don't you just hate it when you can't even remember what your own notes to yourself mean? Jeez. Anyway, so let's start off with what's going on in King's Landing. And we get to see Tyrion getting his new job as the Master of Coin now that Littlefinger is off to marry crazy lady breastfeeding the kid who's, I don't know, about ready to enter high school. So, yeah. Now, I do like that Tyrion even kind of points out that he's really not terribly qualified for this job. He even says, like, look, I'm good at spending money. I'm not good at making money. But, for all his faults and, being a complete and utter jerk, Tywin does realize that Tyrion's a smart guy and is pretty capable if he's given something that he really puts his mind to. Tyrion, of course, was a very unlikely choice for Hand of the King, but you can't say he didn't do a pretty darn good job of it while he was there. I mean, heck, if it wasn't for Tyrion, then King's Landing probably would have gotten taken by Stannis. That was really mostly Tyrion saving the city. And of course, Tywin doesn't see it that way, but still. As much as he might not like Tyrion, he can't deny that he's not a guy who is not without his abilities. I mean, Tyrion, as I said, can be a really skillful guy when he puts his mind to it. And Master of Coin is really a position where it does make sense to put him. Tyrion has shown repeatedly he knows how to use the wealth and resources that the Lannisters have access to in order to get what he wants out of life. I mean, he's saved his life at the Eyrie in that fashion. He got a bunch of wildlings on his side. Again, Tyrion is a very, very resourceful and clever guy. And as much as his dad might not like him, he does seem to recognize that, even if he won't say so. Now, I also have to say I really enjoyed that scene between Tyrion and Littlefinger. These are two guys who are in some ways very similar. Littlefinger is a guy who really comes from sort of very, very minor nobility, if I remember correctly, or is really a jumped-up commoner. I can't exactly remember the exact distinction. No, wait, yes, he is very, very minor nobility. I remember that now. His family owns a little tiny sliver of land in the Fingers. That's why he's called Littlefinger, because they own the littlest part. Yes, okay. I do remember some of the stuff from the books. Okay. Of course, Tyrion's the son of Tywin Lannister, so he's big time, nobility. But again, these are people who really get by in this world on their wits. And, of course, they're both very fond of brothels, although that is for very different reasons. Boy, I wonder if it was one of Littlefinger's brothels that Tyrion brought that donkey and the honeycomb to. Probably not, but still want to hear that story. But anyway, So yeah, just seeing those two guys really bounce off each other, that was really great. We never really did, in my mind, get to see enough of that. But quality over quantity, I suppose. And of course, we're certainly going to be seeing more of Littlefinger. He's off to go and be nefarious somewhere else, but I have a feeling he'll be back causing trouble in King's Landing before too awful long. Now, let me see here. Yes, of course, let's continue on talking about what's going on with Tyrion. And what's going on with him repaying Pod for saving his life? Yeah. Wow. Damn, Tyrion. Pod is going to be grateful and loyal to you for the rest of his life. There is just no doubt about it there. Now, the question, of course, is there something more going on with the hookers not taking Pod's money, or is this just sort of a one-off joke? I really can't help, given that it was Littlefinger's place that he sent Pod to for that sort of thing, that there's probably more going on there. I'd actually be a little disappointed if they just sort of dropped it where it was. But even if that does happen, this is the scene of Bronn and Tyrion like gathering around Pod is like, okay, I want you to go over what happened in explicit detail. It's just like, yeah, that was a really good moment of levity that really I think was needed to counterbalance some of the darker aspects of this episode. And let's face it, this was in many ways a very dark episode. I mean, we get two major characters almost getting raped this episode. And we're going to talk more about that unsavory business a little bit later on. Now, I'm pretty sure that the guards planning to rape Theon is from the TV show. I really am quite certain I'd have remembered that if it was in the books. Now, in the books, Theon had some other unfortunate experiences, so we'll just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil some of that. Theon's journey looks like someplace where they really are taking a serious divergence, but I'm okay with that. What's really interesting here is the boy, and that's apparently what the credits officially titled him as, is showing once again that he's seriously some badass. He's a serious badass. He can really go out there and take care of some stuff. And if I can actually take a step aside from that one, I really got to say I really like that horse chase scene. I thought that was exciting and really well done. And Alfie. Oh darn! I'm blanking on his last name. The fellow that plays Theon. He really sold that. I just got whacked in the chest by a Morningstar thing. Not to mention just his absolute terror at what those guards were planning to do to him. But anyway, coming back to the boy. I can't say as I really care for that moniker. The big fan speculation seems to really go with the idea that this is Ramsay Snow. And I have to say, given what I'm remembering there, that does seem like a very likely guess. Now notice, of course, if you're not familiar with the books, that his name is Snow. And we know that Snow is, of course, the surname given to bastards from the north. And do keep in mind, before he killed the guy that was about to rape Theon, the last words out of that guy's mouth before he catches an arrow in the eye is bastard. Foreshadowing? Quite possibly. And of course, this is Ramsay Bolton. Well, he's a guy who opens up a whole new can of worms. Although I have to say that if that is who this boy is, he really doesn't look like how I pictured Ramsay. I pictured Ramsay as not being quite such a good-looking fellow. The actor they have playing the boy, he seems like he looks to be a pretty handsome fella. So, but again, that's just sort of my mental picture of what Ramsay's like. We'll see. But anyway, I'm still quite interested in what's going on with Theon. Again, as I said, just because this seems to be where they're really going for a serious divergence. And I suppose, well, okay, let's get all the unpleasant rapey talk out of the way. So that requires us to step over and talk about what's going on with Brienne and Jaime. Now, the dynamic Brienne and Jaime is really a very interesting one. And I like how, Jaime can be really literally trying to kill this woman, and then a couple of hours later actually actively trying to save her life. He even gives her that advice, like, look, just let these guys rape you. It's pretty much a guarantee that's what they're going to do. If you fight back with them, they're going to try and kill you. They will kill you. And that is, under the circumstances, certainly not the advice that Brienne would want to hear, but let's look at just how grim her situation is. Jaime is telling her what she needs to do in order to survive. All right, there is no silver bullet escape plan in that situation. The only plan when you're in a situation that bad, really, and this is what people will even tell you in the real world, people who do like self-defense and things like that will always sometimes tell you, in situations like that, it's survive first and foremost. I mean, that's just an unfortunate fact of particularly grim situations like that. And of course, to her credit, Brienne even says, screw that. I'd rather die than let these guys, gang rape me. And again, she's fighting and kicking and screaming the whole darn way. And here we get to see that, for all his pretty boyness and martial skill, Jaime, and of course his impulsiveness, that Jaime's actually got a decent brain. He's like Tyrion. He can be very capable of more than you'd expect out of him when he puts his mind to it. And for as much as he's given Brienne grief, she has at this point earned Jaime's respect to a degree. I mean, if that hadn't happened, do you really think that Jaime would have really given a rat's ass that these guys were going to drag her off and gang rape her? And remember, Jaime is a guy who does not have a problem with murdering children. Then again, I suppose you could also make the case that Jaime, while he's okay with murdering children, doesn't like rapists. I mean, it's a very unclear line, really, exactly where Jaime draws the line of good and bad, but clearly he does draw it somewhere. And he's able to, use that, that intelligence that he has, and of course his, Lannisterness, in order to get them to decide to ransom Brienne unharmed rather than rape her. Of course, this does not really entirely work out for Jaime, as we see. The main guy, what was his name, Keen or something like that, of the brother of the Bolton guys, does not take a kind look towards Jaime's aristocratic tendencies, shall we say. And, what's really nice about that scene is you can actually really see those shining through on Jaime. He even kind of mentions, like, yeah, as a kid, I learned a lot of fancy words because my dad made me read 4 hours a day. And I like that, as smart as he is being in that scene, Jaime doesn't quite pick up on just how he's actually shooting himself in the foot there. Or I guess we should say shooting himself in the hand, because as somebody who read the books before the show came on the air and all that, I gotta say, this is one of those moments where I was just like, yeah, I bet the people who haven't read the books choked on their drinks when they saw that. And yeah, because I gotta admit, this is probably pretty darn close to what happened to Ned at the end of season 1, towards the end of season 1, in terms of, jaw-dropping for people who don't already know the story. And I can't really say too much more about what's going to happen with Jaime from this point on, but I will say that in the books, after this event, Jaime started to really grow on me much more as a character. Now, part of that is because prior to this, Jaime wasn't the best defined character in the series. He was, as they put it over on TV Tropes, kind of out of focus. Once this happens to his hand, we get to start spending more time with Jaime, seeing things from his perspective more, and him dealing with the fact that he's down to one hand. Yeah, sorry folks, I will give you the spoiler there. They ain't sewing that back on. Okay, there's no Dr. Green handy there's no house handy to fix that hand up. It is gone gone. So yeah. And as long as we're talking about trying to wrap up all the rapey stuff, boy, I really don't like the fact that I had to put it that way, but this ain't a happy show at times, eh? Anyway, let's hop over to what's going on with Dany, because one of the points that is made about the Unsullied is that the Unsullied do not rape. They do not commit. They don't sack cities. They don't mass murder folks just for just for laughs, or because they're angry, or because they're bored, or because they're horny. The Unsullied only kill if they are ordered to. And it is important for the story that the case be made as to why Dany, who is generally very much on the side of characters who are about as good as it gets in the Game of Thrones universe, would consider and even consent to owning a slave army. I mean, remember, slavery is banned in Westeros. It's considered, horrible. I mean, that's what got a certain guy kicked off Bear Island, eh? So, the case really did have to be made as to why Dany could morally justify doing something like employing a slave army. And I do like how the case is made. It is presented as a reasonable choice. It is presented as a choice that will minimize the deaths of innocents in the coming war that Dany is going to start. Now, of course, there's also the fact that, okay, Dany's only going to have about 8,000 soldiers, plus, the handful of Dothraki that she's managed to hold on to. And that doesn't really seem to be enough to take the Iron Throne in my book. But, oh wait, Dany has dragons. So, Dany's still kind of a long shot for getting the Iron Throne, but, excuse me, you do start to see how it looks like she's got at least a shot at it here. Now, of course, we've got the whole thing of, well, she just promised to give away one of her dragons in exchange for this army. Well, I don't really think I can say anything further about that until after next episode. I think there we're going to see a little bit more of how that all shakes out. So that's something for us to look forward to. Okay, so now that that's done, let's go and briefly talk about what's going on over at the Tully's place. Again, we just get some random guy sitting in a boat for Hoster Tully. No need to really pay an actor more than a few bucks there. Of course, we get to see Blackfish in action, and he is every bit the badass old guy that he should be. And I really legit enjoy that scene with Catelyn after getting that story about Jon Snow. Here we get to see a little bit more of something that can kind of bring us back to be wanting to be compassionate towards Cat. I'm the first to admit that as a big time Jon Snow fan, I really can't always get 100% on board with Cat, but the way this scene was done here, and especially in how she gives us some insight into what she was like in her mind as a child in relation to her father, and that bonding scene with her uncle, very much being a surrogate father there for her. Really, really nicely done stuff there. Of course, we also get to see Robb tearing his, was that Edmure, I believe the fellow's name is? Really reaming him out for screwing up that. And I really did like that scene. It was especially really great in the books because it really shows Robb does have a pretty good idea of what he's doing. Not a perfect idea, but again, it reminds us that Robb is more than just a guy who knows how to swing a sword. He's more than just some Stark version of Jaime. Robb has a real understanding of strategy. Now, again, he's not a flawless military commander. He's still a young guy, but he does know how to plan ahead. He does know how to think several steps ahead. And him Taron Edmer a new one there, that really does go a long way of showing that Rob has everything it takes to really back up a lot of that reputation that he has to be, king worthy. And of course, we also get some mostly pointless scene with Talisa that just feels like it's there to go, hey, you guys should like Talisa. She's nice and is, joking around with a kid for fun. Okay. Look, I don't really have anything against Talisa, but please don't try and shove liking her down my throat, alright? Let me see. Oh yes. Sorry, I have to hop back over to Danny for a minute. I gotta say, I also really like that line. We are not good thing. It's a good thing we are not men. That is also another really great moment for Danny. So let me see here. Yeah, okay. So now it's time to hop north of the wall and talk about what's going on there. Let's see. So we start off with that whole spiral of horse heads, which was really cool and really screwed up. And, well, suddenly that famous scene from The Godfather doesn't seem to have quite the same kick that it used to, at least in my book. Now, of course, we also get another one of the really famous lines from Mance Rayner from the books. One of his best is, I'm going to start the biggest fire the North has ever seen. That really goes a lot to show you just what this guy is all about. And remember, this is a guy who commands an army that includes giants. Then, of course, it's time to go back and see Craster again, and we, of course, are quickly reminded that he's a jerk and really creepy. And, of course, we're also reminded of what it is that he does to baby boys, and the rather grim fate that's doubtlessly in store probably very soon for Gilly's son. Hopefully everybody has still remembered who Gilly is. And again, this is another step on Sam's journey, a very important one. And I gotta say, I'm really looking forward to where this is going, because Gilly's a character that, even though she's mostly a supporting character, a side character, I ended up liking her quite a bit. And let me see here. Yes, how could I forget? Of course, in this episode, at 2 different times, we get to hear the bear and the maiden fair. And I have to say, I'm actually slightly disappointed that it doesn't look like we're going to get to see a live-action version of Butterbumps doing this song. But what we do get is the fellow who's singing it in the first part is apparently from some Irish rock band called Snow Patrol. This is just something I read that was mentioned about this episode. I've never heard of this band before. I don't know if it was them that performed that rock version that we heard at the very end of the episode, but I have to say I enjoyed that quite a bit. That's something I'm probably going to YouTube later and maybe add to my favorites list. I've already got some Game of Thrones music on there if I remember right. So yeah, that was very nicely done. It was just such a wonderful contrast to that whole rock. And of course, if you've listened to the lyrics of The Bear and the Maiden Fair, it's like, wait a second, are they talking about what I think they're talking about? And the answer is yeah, probably. The scene with Pod doesn't kind of erase any doubt as to where the Game of Thrones universe / Westeros, Song of Ice and Fire, whatever, is when it comes to the somewhat naughty side of life, shall we say. Try and keep this tasteful. Yeah. But yeah, The Bear and the Maiden Fair is actually quite a fun song. I admit that I do get a bit of a kick out of it. And that, I think, covers everything I had to say about this episode, folks. Oh yes, I did almost forget one thing. Yes, Hot Pie, it seems, gets a happy ending. Somebody in Westeros actually seems to get a happy ending. of course, he did say that the woman that owned the inn was basically taking him to cover the debts run up by the Brotherhood of Banners, so it seems that Hot Pie's happy ending is a long time of indentured servitude to pay off a debt that he himself did not actually incur. And again, this is the Game of Thrones universe where that actually probably could be considered a happy ending. Will this be the last we see of poor good old Hot Pie? Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. I know that's the question that's just burning in your hearts. And with that, folks, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi.